In the summer of 1947, on a remote ranch in New Mexico, a rancher found scattered debris unlike anything he had ever seen. Within days, the U.S. military stated they had recovered a flying disc. Then it changed its story the very next day. What followed was one of the most famous and debated incidents in modern history. Welcome to Roswell. I am Anna English, the AI voice of the exo-ops network. Was Roswell the crash of an extraterrestrial craft? A Cold War balloon experiment? A case of mistaken identity made larger by rumor, secrecy, and public fascination? Tonight, we go back to the desert, back to July 1947, and tell the full story of Roswell. To understand Roswell, we need to understand the world that produced it. It was 1947. World War II had ended just 2 years earlier. The United States had emerged as a superpower, but the world was quickly entering a new kind of fear. The Cold War was beginning. Atomic weapons had changed what war meant. Air power mattered more than ever. Surveillance was becoming a national obsession, and in the popular imagination, the sky itself had become a place of danger and wonder. That same year, Americans were hearing more and more stories about mysterious objects in the sky. The phrase, flying saucer, had only just entered the public vocabulary after pilot Kenneth Arnold reported seeing strange objects near Mount Rainier in June 1947. Newspapers seized on the idea, and the public imagination ran wild. So when something strange happened near Roswell, New Mexico, people were already primed to believe it might be extraordinary. Roswell would not just become a local mystery, it would become part of American mythology. The story begins on a ranch northwest of Roswell, known as the Foster Ranch. In early July 1947, ranch foreman Mac Brazel reportedly found unusual debris spread across a large area after a storm. The material did not look like normal wreckage. Witnesses later described it as thin strips, foil-like pieces, sticks, rubber, and paper-like fragments. Some people said it was light enough to carry, yet hard to cut or burn. Others remembered strange symbols on some of the material. Whether those memories were accurate, embellished, or the result of years of retelling is part of the ongoing debate. At the time, Brazel did not immediately turn the debris over to authorities. But after hearing about the flying saucer reports circulating in the news, he decided the material might be important. He brought it to the sheriff in Roswell, who then contacted the military. That call set the whole story in motion. Roswell Army Airfield was the nearest military base, and it was no ordinary installation. It was home to the 509th Bomb Group, the only atomic bomb unit in the world at the time. Military personnel went to investigate the ranch debris. One of the officers involved was Major Jesse Marcel, an intelligence officer whose name would later become central to the Roswell legend. According to the later story, Marcel examined the wreckage and believed it was not ordinary material. In some accounts, he suggested it might not have come from Earth at all. What he actually thought in 1947 is hard to prove, because memory, testimony, and later interviews do not always align perfectly. But what happened next made the case famous. On July 8, 1947, the Roswell Army Airfield issued a press release stating that personnel had recovered a flying disc from a ranch near Roswell. That single phrase launched a national sensation. The local paper ran with the headline. The story spread quickly. For a brief moment, it looked as though the military had confirmed something extraordinary. Then the official explanation changed. Soon after the flying disc announcement, the U.S. Army retracted the claim. A new explanation emerged. The debris had been from a weather balloon, or more precisely, a balloon-related device associated with high-altitude surveillance. The military presented this as the mundane answer, and the story was quickly downgraded in the public mind. But the damage was done. Why had the military first said flying disc and then backed away? Was it a mistake, a rushed press release, a misunderstanding, or a deliberate cover-up? For believers in the extraterrestrial explanation, the change in story was the first sign that something was being hidden. For skeptics, it was the beginning of a classic rumor spiral, a strange event, a dramatic headline, and then decades of memory reshaped by retellings, books, documentaries, and speculation. Roswell didn't disappear. It went underground. For years, Roswell remained mostly a footnote. That matters because the modern legend of Roswell is often imagined as though it immediately became a national obsession. In reality, the incident did not dominate headlines for decades, the way it would later. The story had a short burst of attention in 1947, then faded. But it never vanished completely. In the 1970s, researchers and UFO enthusiasts began revisiting the case. Interviews with surviving witnesses, retired military personnel, and local residents brought Roswell back into the spotlight. Each new account seemed to add another layer: a secret recovery site, strange bodies, military secrecy, intimidation, hidden documents, and the suggestion that the government had not told the full truth. As these stories spread, Roswell transformed from a forgotten incident into a modern legend. And once that happened, every new piece of testimony was treated like a clue. One reason Roswell remains powerful is that it has so many voices attached to it. There are the ranchers who found the debris, the military personnel who handled it, the relatives of witnesses who later repeated family stories, investigators who interviewed participants years after the event, and skeptics who point out the limits of memory, the influence of suggestion, and the way a good story can grow over time. Jesse Marcel became one of the most famous Roswell witnesses. In later interviews, he said the material he handled in 1947 was not consistent with a simple weather balloon. He described it as unusual, lightweight, and unlike anything he had seen before. Other witnesses offered different versions of events, including claims of strange bodies at crash sites, military roadblocks, and secretive transport of debris. These accounts are among the most controversial aspects of the Roswell story. Some are deeply compelling, others are difficult to verify, and some likely became exaggerated through repetition. That is part of Roswell's special power. It sits at the border between evidence and legend. In the 1990s, the U.S. Air Force released reports offering a more detailed explanation for the Roswell incident. The key idea was Project Mogul, a classified program that used high-altitude balloons to detect Soviet nuclear tests by listening for sound waves in the atmosphere. Because the project was secret, many of the materials found on the ranch would not have been recognizable to civilians. This explanation gave skeptics a strong alternative. Roswell was not an alien crash, but a combination of a secret military project, bad communication, and a public already fascinated by flying saucers. To believers, however, Project Mogul did not settle the matter. They argued that it did not fully explain every witness account, every alleged recovery detail, or the intense secrecy surrounding the case. So Roswell remained unresolved in the public mind, even if the official explanation became more detailed. Why did Roswell become so much bigger than other strange events? Because Roswell had everything a cultural myth needs. It had a rural setting, a mystery in the desert, military secrecy, shifting official statements, and the possibility of contact with something beyond human experience. It arrived at exactly the right moment in history, when Americans were thinking about nuclear power, Cold War secrecy, and the possibility of life beyond Earth. It also helped create the modern UFO template. Before Roswell, strange sky reports existed, but Roswell gave the public a narrative structure: a crash, recovery, secrecy, denial, and cover-up. That structure became the model for countless later UFO stories, films, books, and conspiracy theories. Roswell did more than inspire curiosity. It helped define how people imagine hidden truth. Roswell is now bigger than the original incident. The town of Roswell embraced its place in history. UFO festivals, museums, themed attractions, souvenir shops, and annual events turned the incident into an economic and cultural identity. What began as a mystery in the New Mexico desert became an international brand. In pop culture, Roswell helped shape the modern alien image, small, gray, large-eyed beings associated with secrecy and abduction stories. It became shorthand for government cover-ups and unexplained encounters. Even people who know little about the original event still know the name Roswell. That is the strange legacy of the crash. Whether one believes it was a balloon, a classified device, or something extraterrestrial, the cultural impact is undeniable. Roswell changed the way people think about the sky. And maybe more importantly, it changed the way people think about truth. So what really happened in 1947? There are three broad possibilities. First, the official explanation. The debris came from a secret balloon-based surveillance project, and the confusion was caused by secrecy, haste, and poor communication. Second, the conspiracy explanation. The military recovered a craft of non-human origin and covered it up. Third, the middle ground. Something unusual happened, but over time the story absorbed rumor, false memory, exaggeration, and cultural expectation until no single version could fully contain it. The truth may never satisfy everyone. That is part of why Roswell endures. Because Roswell is not only about what fell from the sky. It is about what people believed they saw, what institutions chose to say, and how a mystery can become bigger than the facts that started it. More than 70 years later, the Roswell crash remains one of the most famous mysteries in American history. It lives at the intersection of evidence and imagination, secrecy and storytelling, history and myth. Maybe that is why it still fascinates us. Because Roswell asks a question that never really goes away. When the truth is uncertain, what do we believe, and why? If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to the show and share it with someone else. That's how we continue to grow. Until next time, keep searching. Your answers are out there.